Hi friends, welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell, and around here we make art and it's fun, not scary. Every year I do a bullet journal setup, usually in December, getting you ready for the year ahead, and we go through things like a cover page and the key and goals trackers and just all the stuff that kind of gets you ready for the coming year. I would say that bullet journaling is very much about future planning, but there's also an aspect where you can include a lot of like gratitude. And in 2025, I'm really excited to turn my Bujo into a bullet journal / mental health journal. My journal has always been a place where I go for like restorative to restore. It's always been something that uplifts. It's also a personal space, so it's somewhere that I just doodle and I can make a mess. It can be pretty or it can not be pretty. And my journal has always been somewhere that grounds me because I can get everything out of my head and onto the page. I don't want to talk too much because this is always a big video, but that's the gist. We're going to do bullet journal with mental health. I think it's such a great marriage. It just makes sense to me based on kind of what journaling does for me. So let's get into it. And I can't wait to hear what you think in the comments. If you're setting up a journal for the year ahead, what are you using it for? What does it mean to you? And don't forget, this video has chapters, so if you want to jump to any of the spreads, it's really easy to do. Supplies are also listed in the video description. Let me show you what I'm using this year. So I have a black A5, so it's about 5 by 8 inches journal with bright white dot grid pages. I'm a little embarrassed, well, I'm very embarrassed to say this is an Archer and Olive knockoff, not the regular notebook that I use. I love Archer and Olive. They have the best thick white paper. We're having a postal strike in Canada, so I could not get an Archer and Olive notebook. However, I do have one, plus a set of my paints, plus a bunch of other goodies to give to one of you whenever this postal strike is done. So anyone who comments below telling me about why you love bullet journaling or mental health journaling will be entered into the giveaway. Now we're also using my favorite fine liners in a couple of different nib sizes. So I like having a smaller and a larger nib. I've got my favorite Pitt pens. These are markers, but they are India ink. And then I'm going to try a white one, but they're just my favorite markers to use in a journal. I also love my Tombos. Have I even said the other theme for this year? I don't think I have. My other sort of secondary theme is, are you ready for this? Some people are going to get it. Black and white, or monochrome, I should say. So we'll do lots of black and white or blue and white spreads, and I think I'm going to really enjoy that in my bullet / mental health journal. And starting with the cover page, this is like my nameplate page, I should say, a page that is the cover for the journal that just says whose journal this is. I've put a square right in the middle, or a rectangle, I guess, and then I've placed a bunch of circles and ovals. And within those circles, I'm using them as guides for flowers. So the circles, putting them in first allows you to say how big each flower is. If you do an oval, you can do that really shallow front petal, and then it makes it look like that flower is on a bit of an angle, and you can angle it either up or down. So anytime you're doing an illustration in pen, I highly recommend starting in pencil, and don't even try to draw the flower in its complexity first. Start with a circle or oval, then put in the petals. Then when you go over everything in pen, you can, add all the details like little ruffles on the petals and stuff like that. And you can see that once I have the big sort of floral arrangement in the center, then I just want to surround everything with lots of leaves. I'm doing mostly small leaves, but a few sort of medium leaves, and we are going to fill in the entire rectangle, and it's just going to make this really nice graphic nameplate page. And at the bottom, we'll write Shayda's journal. Well, you will put your name, and it's just a nice way to start things off. Once you've drawn everything in pencil, of course, we will switch to a fine liner, and I am using a 0.9 millimeter nib, so a little bit of a larger nib size. And I just do dots at the center of each flower, and then, as I said, like a cluster of dots, I sort of wiggle the pen a little, and at this point I add, the final details, like giving the flowers a bit more of a ruffled, perfectly imperfect look. So you're going from a circle to petals to then petals with a bit more shape once you go over everything in pen. And part of the reason I really wanted to transition to a bullet journal / mental health journal this year is because there is something so good about making art, about getting creative, about just doodling. Doodling if you look up the definition, is a drawing that you create while you're not really thinking about it. It's a very meditative act is what I take that to mean. And a lot of my flowers, I have been drawing them for so long, and I'm sure many of you are getting to that point as well, where it just feels very second nature. And that's why I wanted to go back to black and white in this journal. I wanted to create spreads that felt very achievable, very Shayda. I know a lot of you are fans of this style and have been practicing it for a lot of years. And if we want our journal to be a place that we go to have kind of a meditative time, to have creative time that uplifts and calms you down and sort of helps with your anxiety, I hope. I do find the act of drawing to be very good for kind of quieting my mind and ridding me of a lot of my daily anxieties. So that's partly why this theme works for me. It's just something that I've done before. I'm trying to do something that's familiar, yet also new and unique. So all of the spreads, of course, are new, but they have a kind of familiarity to them. If you're a Shayda Campbell fan, I would think. I hope you're enjoying this setup as much as I am. It's the type of thing you can really pick away at over your holiday. You don't have to do it all at once, not like me. And friends, don't forget, all of the spreads that I'm doing today are available for you to print. Download and print and just put in your own journal. You don't have to do any of the work. In fact, you could just have the fun of coloring because they all are available as a coloring page. So head to Patreon and you can download that. It's $3 a month or $33 to become a patron. But right now there is a sale on. Use code HOLIDAY2024 to save 25% on that yearly fee. Or if you're not into subscriptions, I get that, and you can actually purchase the entire pack for my Bujo Mental Health yearly setup. That's also on Patreon. There's a link in the description. Got rid of all my messy pencil, and we can start coloring this in, or shading it, I should say, because we're just going to shade with pen. And what I want to do is make all of the leaves really dark, so you can either just color them in, like using a large fine liner or even a black brush pen, like those Faber-Castell Pitt pens, or I also recommend the Tombow brush pens, or you can just do some line shading that's really dense. So the closer together you put your lines, the darker everything will appear. And then I was sort of doing that, and then I just thought, I want them to be quite dark. So I kind of just started scribbling and coloring, and I like the way that looks. And then I will use that line shading technique on the flowers themselves. And I'll actually stop with the leaves and show you what that looks like. So I'm going to grab the 0.3 millimeter nib. Before I was using the 0.9 millimeter, so quite a bit larger. This you can be much more precise with those thin little lines. And I am just coloring in the flowers, coloring in, so to speak, with lots and lots of lines. And I try to make sure that the lines follow the similar shape to the petal, to the outline of the petal. So you're always looking at your contour drawing, which is just your line drawing. And you're making sure that those shading lines follow the contour drawing lines. And that will help to give your flowers a really beautiful shape, an organic shape. And this is all stuff that I go over in depth in my Floral Illustration e-course. If you're looking for a gift, a last-minute gift for someone, or even for yourself, gifting, learning, gifting a new skill, I think is a really beautiful thing, and it's something that you don't have to wrap. So there you go. Head to my website and use code HOLIDAY24 to save big right now. Now I've switched back to the larger fine liner, and I'm just coloring in these really big leaves. You could also do this with the brush pen or the Pitt pen. It doesn't matter. We did some heavy dotting at the center of the flowers to create contrast and give them a nice stamen. And I think we've really created a nice amount of contrast just with the true black and then the line shading on the flowers. It really differentiates between what is a leaf and what is a petal or what is a flower. But that's it. We are done. Our nameplate page, get rid of any remaining pencil marks. And there you have it. I found that really fun and chill to create, and I hope you did too. Filling in a shape is always a good design idea. You could draw a circle or a heart and just fill it in with leaves. It's a simple but very effective design. And I said we were done, but I decided to do one more thing, and that's just come in with my white gel pen and do some lines on some of those larger leaves. You can do some little veining lines or just a single line down the center, adds a nice design element. And I just don't know when to be done. So, okay, the nameplate page is complete now, and we're going to flip over, and the next page, or the next spread that we're going to do is our actual 2025 bullet journal / mental health journal cover page. So this design, I wanted to create a little arch. So I actually have this cute little pen tray that I got at Indigo years ago, and we're going to use that. We're going to trace it. So just use what you have, you know. And we've created a sweet little arch, and then I want it to have kind of a thick border, so I'm just sketching that part in. For our cover page this year, we're going to keep everything really graphic and floral, of course, so I am doing some Lily of the Valley here, which I love to illustrate. It's a flower I go back to again and again. You're just doing two big kind of cane shapes, and then two leaves that curl and curve upward and sort of fill in that arch. And then we're going to make stripes or little sort of checks on the arch so that we can create some pattern, and you can see how I'm filling that in. The flowers are bell-shaped with that scalloped bottom, and then we're just going to write grow slow, because that's what this year is all about, growth and good mental health. And you can put the year at the top, and we'll do some pattern in the border, and we'll do some little dots, because you can always add dots, always a good idea. And as I go over this in pen, I do want to say that this illustration, this cover page, is loosely based on the art of her Instagram is Jess Marie Art. I think I'll put it up on the screen. It's okay to take inspiration, especially if you're not copying verbatim, but to be inspired by other artists and illustrators out there that you always want to credit. So I saw a beautiful sticker of hers, and I thought, oh, I really want to do something kind of graphic and folky like that. That's what my journal is going to be about this year. I'm taking a lot of inspiration from my other journals. You know, we don't have to reinvent ourselves every year as much as social media would make us think we do. I really loved the last two themes that we did. Bonus points if you remember. We did folklore 2 years ago, and then last year it was pattern play. And those themes have heavily influenced my art and my journal themes. Still to this day, I put a lot of kind of folk art and folklore in my journal. The pattern play, really, this cover page is a pattern. It's very symmetrical. We're going to create pattern on the border. So yeah, don't ever feel like you have to totally reinvent yourself. Like, I'm making content and I'm still pulling from themes that I developed, being inspired by other artists. All art, has to come from somewhere. It's very hard to come up with something wholly new, and you certainly do not need to. So I created this entire cover page design in pencil first. I love to do things in pencil. And then I am using the Faber-Castell Pitt pen to go over it. So it's a nice black brush pen with a very fine point, or I also have a bullet tip here as well. I found both of them to be helpful, the brush tip and the bullet. So if you can grab both, it's not a bad idea. You don't need a lot of supplies for journaling, typically a few pens and the journal itself. And the bullet point or the brush point that I've been using, it really allows you to do these intricate designs, but you can color them in quite quickly, whereas with the fine liner, it would take much longer. And doing things like these little dots is really easy, and filling in for that checkerboard border. And the reason I love the Faber-Castell Pitt pens, even though they never will send me any free stuff for some reason, is because, just a little inside joke for y'all, because you can put white gel pen on top, and the gel pen will not sort of turn gray. It will stay a nice true white, and that is because the Pitt pens are not water-based and they are not alcohol. They're actually India ink, which is really lovely, and it works very very well for journaling. And you'll really see that as I start to use the white gel pen on the black areas. You can see it stands out really beautifully and doesn't turn gray. No such thing as a perfect white gel pen, I don't think. You kind of want some scrap paper there to, sometimes you kind of need to scribble with the pen to get it going again. But this is my favorite of all the gel pens I've tested. It's a Signo white gel pen. I've linked all of the supplies in the description. Didn't love the Faber-Castell white pen, just saying. But there's our graphic mental health cover page for 2025. Grow slow. It was pretty straightforward to create and incorporates pattern, a little bit of folk art, nice graphic black and white, which we love around here. And what else do we love? We love a Dutch door. So I'm using a cutting mat and a paper knife to just cut around the arch and make this cute little Dutch door. And then I've layered a piece of pink, sort of a peachy pink paper on the page underneath just to give a little color. We'll trace around the Dutch door so we know where we can draw without going outside the border. And tucked beneath our cover, we are going to do a simple page of affirmations for 2025. I love to start the year off with some positive resolutions, intentions, even words like slow or growth or strength, whatever. But I'm going to do affirmations, and I am just drawing some sweet little flowers down here. So again, I start with a guide, a circle, an oval, then put in your center, whether the actual stamen is in the center or quite low, and then put those petals in. If you've got a low stamen, you can do that very shallow front petal. And I've also surrounded the flowers with lots of large leaves that come to a bit of a point, and then even a few berries. I've put a smaller flower and some smaller leaves up top to give this illustration the sense that it's kind of growing upward and things are getting a little smaller, so there's a little bit of depth incorporated there, but very familiar, I think you'll find, and that's what we want: familiar, simple, and enjoyable to create. Okay, I'm going to write 2025 affirmations up here at the top, staying within my little border. And then I want to get rid of all of the pencil marks, have a nice clean contour drawing, and that really allows me to get started on my line shading. Now, I like to shade one side of the leaf first with a dense or close line, a lot of closely placed lines, and then make the other side a little lighter so the lines are not quite as dense or heavy. I'm also doing a bit of line shading at the center of each flower so that the sort of area of the petal that is closest to the stamen. That will give your flowers a nice depth, make them look a little bit concave. I use a lot of the same tricks over and over again, or the same techniques, I should say, when it comes to my floral illustration. And you can find all of that on my YouTube channel. There's lots of floral illustration videos. And then if you like my teaching style, you can always check out my floral illustration e-course. But I put some numbers, got rid of the pencil, and then that is the affirmations page complete. The next page I want to do is my journal key. So this is still going to be a bullet journal. So I still want to use my regular journal key, which we'll talk about what that is in a second if you're new to bullet journaling. But I just sketched an oval, gave it a scalloped edge, cut it out. So I just do a bunch of semicircles along the border. And now I'm doing this really fun sort of symmetrical floral illustration that I go back to again and again, where you place a simple, very simple flower right at the top, do one on the left and one on the right, sort of repeat the shape, make them slightly smaller maybe. Or you could have the small one at the top. Okay, I'm just getting boring. You can do whatever you like. But once you have that sort of triangle of flowers, you join them with stems and then place a bunch of small leaves along those stems and branches. And it just makes this really nice floral illustration that fills an oval or circle really nicely. And if you color it in using that Pitt pen or brush pen, it just comes together really quickly and easily, and it looks nice and graphic. And you could do this just in the notebook itself, or you could do it on a piece of colored paper like I've done here and then glue it in. So that's just a nice way to add some decor, some artsiness to the left-hand side of this layout. I decided to put a few more petals in there, and then I wanted to do a bit of a border as well to make this really light pink paper stand out on the white page. But I think that just looks so good, and it came together in like 5-10 minutes. And then on the right-hand side, what we're going to do is create our journal key. So I'm just writing key, and I put it in a little banner shape here. I might even cut that out of the same pink paper. I'm not sure. We'll talk about that in a moment. But here are the symbols you'll need: 4 squares, a heart, an X, and a dot. Now the 4 squares represent the main way that I use my journal, and that is for task completion. So an empty square is a task. That might be like film a YouTube video. A square with a line through it is task started. I've begun filming the YouTube video. A square with all the lines filled in is task completed. I've actually completed the filming and that part of the task is done. And a square with an X through it is task canceled. So I decided not to film today because I had to go out. A heart is for a birthday. An X is for an event like a birthday party or a dinner out or an appointment. And then the dot is the list item. Once you've put that in, you've written out your key, you can refer back to it throughout the year as you use your bullet journal. So bullet journaling is kind of all about that future planning. And my journal is mainly like a very pretty to-do list. I find it's really helpful for me to get stuff out of my head and get it onto paper, especially if my mind is racing at night or in the evening. I will actually get out of bed, get my journal, and just write down a task list for the following day. If there's something I need to purchase, that would be like a list item. I can write down any appointments I have. Just getting stuff out of my head, I find very helpful for mental peace and clarity. So there's the key. I put my little title at the top on the pink paper, and I think that ties the left and right sides of this spread together really nicely. And actually the whole journal kind of has a nice flow to it with black and white and this little bit of pink. You could choose any color though. I think light blue paper or like a light beige or brown would look so pretty. So totally up to you. I thought it would be nice to kind of quickly show you how I use those symbols. So here's my layout for like the week that just was. So I'm filming this early, of course. I'm still in November. I'm talking to you from the past. So here is a day that I didn't write anything. So let's just make up a pretend day. We're going to say film a video. So there's my task. And then if I have another task that's related to the first, in this case, it might be like purchase pens. I'll indent it underneath the first, and then I'm using the key like the purchase pens is completed, filming has begun. And then under purchase pens, I have some listicles. So I have the actual items I need to purchase in a list, and I'm using my little dots. And yeah, I think that's pretty clear. It is not a complicated key, but it really helps me. I'll show you them side by side so you can see how the icons kind of function. But yeah, it really helps me get the stuff out of my head and onto paper and really have an organized to-do list for the day and week ahead. With the key complete, let's flip over to a fresh blank page and we are going to begin our year at a glance spread. I'm going to start this spread by creating a folded Dutch door right in the center of the page. So when you create a Dutch door, you do not always have to cut. I know some people are very anti-cutting of the journal pages, which I get. There's something like a bit intense about that, although you should not be scared to do so if you would like to. But you can create some really lovely Dutch doors just by folding. And that's what we're doing here. And then I'm writing year at a glance kind of on an angle, and I'm just doing, again, like that mix of upper and lower case I find is just a really fun way to create a title font. And then what we're going to do is draw a whole bunch of flowers, just nothing but flowers, of course. Of course, I just smeared it like on the second one. I put my hand right in the ink and made a mess, but we are not ripping it out. We are not starting over. I'm just going to draw 2 flowers really close together, and then we will put some leaves in there to hide the mess. And it's not even that big of a deal. But these are flowers, another design that I go back to over and over again, where you simply draw a very, very sort of short or thin front petal or bottom petal, and then the other 3 petals are regular size. Of course, you can do flowers where all 4 or 5 petals are equal, but to give these flowers some interest, a bit of depth, you can create that really thin front or bottom petal, and it just makes the flower appear very concave, which is nice because they're quite simple, but it does give them a good look, I think. And then we are filling in all around these flowers with lots of curving branches and little tiny oval leaves. This is one of those designs that is so easy to draw and easy to make look good, even if you do not typically draw. It's basically a glorified doodle, and if you just make it large enough, it's going to look really pretty. So that's what we're doing here, and I actually find it easy enough to do in pen. I don't even need to do this one in pencil first, but if you would like to, certainly it's never a bad idea. I've never really become like super confident with my hand lettering. Any lettering, you'll never see me do freehand lettering like with pen. I always find hand lettering a little bit tricky, and so I always do it in pencil first, and I am fine with that, and I'm fine to admit that. I made the flowers at the very bottom, so in the foreground, a little bit larger, so everything kind of gets bigger as it comes down to the bottom of the page, and that's just a great way to kind of fill space in. And then we are going to have so much fun. This is going to seem really fun and chill to some of you, and then just not chill at all to others. We're going to take that black brush pen and we are going to fill in the entirety of the background. Not quite all the way up, but about halfway up the design, and we're just having a bit of fun with black and white, kind of like the one you just saw in my journal from this year, from 2024. It's a really chill, well, it could be chill. It's a very meditative drawing. You do not have to do this in one sitting. It's one that you can kind of go back to and color in whenever you have a few minutes. And of course, we are losing some of the stems and branches as we fill in, but you're going to go over them in white gel pen. Once you've gone about halfway up the page, you can stop, and then we're going to use our fine liners to go over the title. And then at this point, we need to kind of fix it up. Like, we need to make it look like the black and white spread that it is. So I need to use my black fine liner to color in all of the leaves and branches at the top of the design. And then we need to reach for that white gel pen and start adding in all of the stems and branches and fixing up any leaves at the bottom or base of this design. This is, as I said, I find this a lot of fun. It's kind of like a puzzle. This also feels like a good time to remind you that you can access all of my spreads. Everything you see in this video is available on Patreon. You can get the entire setup for a wonderful 2025 bullet journal / mental health journal, and you just download and print the spreads and add them into your journal. And then you could use them as coloring pages. So your journal does not have to be black and white. Over the years, my Patreon site has become this enormous wealth of content. When I started, I was like, go sign up. It's $3 and you'll get a new worksheet or a printable or a coloring page every week. Now, when you sign up for that $3, you get a new thing every week, but you also get the backlog of content from the last 5 or 6 years. So it's pretty enormous, the amount of extra videos and all of the planner printables from last year, you could use, or from 2020 or whatever. So it's quite the wealth of content at this point. And I know some people are like, don't talk about Patreon in your videos, but I'm really proud of my Patreon, and I never do stuff like, oh, go to see the end of this video, go to Patreon or something. I always give complete YouTube tutorials, and I'm proud of that as well. And that's coming from a Canadian lady who usually doesn't like to say what I do well. So I'm just super pleased with the community that I've built there, that we've built, and all the content that's over there. You can see this year at a glance. I actually wasn't sure if I was going to add the year at a glance in, because this is sort of a mental health journal, but I really like having the calendar of the year in the bullet journal, so that when I'm doing planning throughout the year, I'm not having to look at my phone to get a calendar or see what day the month starts on. So I showed you as I was chatting there, what the 2024 year at a glance looked like. And it also had kind of a Dutch door, or what I would call a pop-out page in the center. And that just makes it really easy to get to the year at a glance anytime you need to see a calendar. And then I just put 6 little calendars on each side. It's sort of tedious to do, but it's not difficult to do. So if you feel like this would be helpful to have in your journal, take an hour, put all those little calendars in, make a cute Dutch door, or this is something that might be nice to print, and you can find that on Patreon. It's $3 to join, or $33 for a year. You can save if you sign up for a year. And right now, using the code on the screen, you can actually get 25% off of that annual membership and become part of our lovely creative community over there. Moving right along, my next spread is the first one that isn't really part of the journal function. So for every bullet journal, I do nameplate, cover, the year at a glance, the key. Now I want to do a healthy sleep spread, and that's part of my mental health journal. So I'm drawing the moon, and I'm going to give her a face. And to do a face, I start with a cross, like a T, and that really shows me where the eyes go. And by rounding it, you're going to create a face that looks very real, and placing the cross really low will help it look like the moon is looking down, because of course she's looking at us down on Earth. And those eyes are going to go on that horizontal line, and then you just do 2 little nostrils, 2 little marks for nostrils, a heart shape for the mouth. Like, faces can seem intimidating or difficult to draw, but they don't need to be, especially if you start with that cross, where the lines are rounded, to help you get kind of everything in the right place. Then if you just do dots for the eyes, like, it's going to look good as long as everything's kind of in the right spot. We're going to give her big dark pupils and then a nice dark lash. So darken that curved line on the outer edges and then give her a few little eyelashes, and it'll look really sweet. Added a little bit of line shading to her lips, and then we're going to draw some very perfectly imperfect circles. I also gave her 2 cheeks, so 2 little circles for the cheeks, and gave gave the moon kind of its moon texture. What am I saying? And then I am going to do lots of dots and also little crosses where I've sort of put a dot at the center, and that way it looks like stars and star bursts and shining stars. You can do some little crisscross star shapes as well, and just fill in. And as I said, the Pitt pens are great because the white gel pen stands out on them and it does not turn gray. With the night sky complete, I'm just going to add a little bit of line shading on the sides of the globe, and I do that by doing some really thin, sparse, curving lines. And then we'll take a larger fine liner, so something with a heavier nib, and we're just going to write healthy sleep in all caps, kind of a skinny all caps that follows the curve of the border. And then I'm going to do a border around the entire 2-page spread, because this will be a 2-page spread. And with my hand-drawn lines, I just pull that pen towards my body, and I like to do a double line because double lines always make everything look straighter. Don't believe me? Try for yourself. If you know, you know. And if you know, then show that double line some love in the comments. Okay, I'm going to take my fine liner and I'm just going to write out all of the elements of what healthy sleep, or like a healthy sleep routine, looks like for me. So this is just somewhere I can go to remind myself of my sleep routine. Things like dimming the lights. I love just using my lamps in the evening, not working before bed, no screens for an hour before bed. I like to have a ginger tea. It's just like a sign to my body that we're slowing down for the day. I don't text anyone back. I mean, I never text anyone back, by the way, but especially after 9 p.m. I definitely don't. Oh, okay. I'm losing my voice a little, so it's like, no texts. Anyways, I used my little pink paper trick again where I cut out the banner to use for a title, and the title is Dreams. This is just a nice spot where you can record any unique or interesting dreams that you have throughout the year. Don't think that's enough space? Glue a little envelope there and tuck a paper in that will have all your dreams, and that keeps it more personal as well. Okay, next spread is all about breaks, healthy rest, and relaxation. So over here on the right, I'm going to do a picture, just an illustration that represents this spread. The spread is a tracker, and you're going to use it 1 week at a time, so it is not for the whole year, but you can get my tracker on Patreon, print it out, and use it week after week. Now, for my mental health, a lot of it has to do not with motivation, but with relaxation. I find that I would identify as someone who has high functioning anxiety, so I always feel like I need to be busy, be productive. I feel like my worth is tied to my productivity. And so creating a spread where I'm logging how I actually relaxed and rested, I think is going to be really, really important and really healthy for me. And if you're someone who feels the opposite, you're like, all I want to do is chill and rest, then I think actually logging your rest and knowing when you're going to take that break, it can be a great way to motivate you to keep going. So however you use this, I just think it's going to be something that's really helpful, and you can download and print mine if you like over on Patreon, or of course, I'm going to show you how to design it for yourself, because I will always be all about my free content. So the illustration is totally optional. It's just for fun. If you're someone who feels like you don't want to do the illustrative part of journaling, as someone who loves it, I say, don't do it. Just skip it. Your journal should reflect your loves and interests. I like making things pretty. I actually find the act of sort of beautifying my spreads to be motivating. It motivates and inspires me. I don't know if you can identify with that. If you do, comment below. Like, there's something about making it pretty that actually keeps me inspired throughout the year. But for this relaxation spread, I have just sketched a very basic wreath using all of the techniques that we already talked about earlier in the video. So those cute little flowers, leaves with a bit of line shading. And then instead of doing the dark leaves with the line shaded flowers, we just left the flowers white and did the line shading on the leaves. And then I didn't really like the way the snail looked, like something just felt unbalanced with him. So I used that trick that we've talked about of using the paper, and I made his shell out of the pink paper that I've been using throughout the rest of my journal, colored his body in with black, and then we're writing "Go Slow" in a simple print on his shell. So we've got a fun little illustration. Now let's talk about the actual relaxation tracker. I've sketched the weekly restful tracker in pencil, and then as I go over it in pen, I'll explain it. So what you're doing here is basically recording the activities that you do that are relaxing. So I think for anybody that's activity driven, this is going to be very effective. Over on the left, you have the day and then the time, and the time refers to how long you actually spent doing the thing. And then you have the activity log, and then you're going to rate the activity. So let me explain. On Monday, you could say I spent 15 minutes knitting, but then maybe it turns out knitting actually wasn't that restful. You're just learning, or you're taking on a project that's a little bit, so you're going to rate it 1 out of 5. It wasn't that relaxing. So the next day, Tuesday, maybe you spent 30 minutes doing yoga and it was like a 4 out of 5, quite relaxing, but not a 5 out of 5. So maybe on Wednesday, you just do some light stretching and sitting and just, being in your body for 20 minutes. And that's like a 5 out of 5. Maybe it's having a cup of tea. You don't have to try to improve either. It's just a way to say, like, I actually did no screens, 5-minute meditation one day, and it was great. Or it wasn't. When I meditate, I just stress and I start to let my mind wander and I worry. So it was a 2 out of 5. So the next day you could try having a cup of tea. You know what? I'm making it into like you have to improve. You do not. It's just a way to log how you rested, how you rested your mind and your body. And this is available for you to print if you want to, but you've got the design right here. It's really easy to recreate every week, and I wish you good mental health and rest. All right, let's flip over, and this is the final spread of my setup for this year. So I'm repeating a design that we've already used. This is the design from the key. Yes, the key that I put on the little pink paper, and I'm just going to draw it right on this time, because there's nothing wrong with repeating and just doing things that are really mindful and fun. Like when you're comfortable with an illustration, it just makes the process really relaxing. And that's what we want for our journals this year. So do that cute little triangle of flowers joined together with stems. Draw a perfectly imperfect oval around it, maybe double that line if you're into that kind of thing. And then do the little scalloped border. And then over here on the right-hand side, we are going to write 3-minute meditation. And this is something that I am going to go back to again and again to remind me to do a 3-minute meditation every day, and to remind me how to do one. Although you don't have to follow mine. This is just something I found online. You can make up your own or find one that speaks to you. But the first step being sort of to ground yourself, get comfy, start taking some nice deep breaths, inhaling for 4 counts, exhale for 6 counts, etc. Step 2 is to focus on that breathing. Relax your eyes, soften your gaze, and if your mind wanders, guide your mind back to breathing. And then the final step, step 3, is to settle yourself, release tension in your body, and maybe repeat some positive affirmations. Each step is 1 minute, making it a 3-minute meditation. My hope here is that you just open your journal to this page, and it's a reminder to take those 3 minutes for yourself. I put a few cutie pie little birdies up here at the top. I just always think of meditating. It reminds me of clouds, like your thoughts are clouds just passing through, and they do not define you. And so I thought I would draw some little birds and a cloud, very simple little doodles. You can do something similar. I think it would actually look cute if you blacked everything out and put white flowers, kind of like we did in the folk art folklore theme, but I just did a little bit of color with my gray. Okay, friends, that's it. Our 2025 Bullet Journal Mental Health Journal is complete, and I'm so pleased with the way this turned out. I love me some black and white. We've got our nameplate page, our 2025 cover with the affirmations tucked underneath. Then we've got the key, very simple, but that's how your bullet journal works. You have your year at a glance. It's got some pencil marks in there, and so you don't have to look at your phone when you need a calendar. And you've got a nice Dutch door there if you did want to put some more goals or words for the year tucked underneath. We have a place to record our dreams and practice our sleep hygiene. We have a go slow relaxation and restfulness tracker reminding us to slow down and that rest is productive, that it's necessary. And then we have a beautiful 3-minute meditation that you can do daily. Like, who doesn't have 3 minutes? I mean, me usually, but I'm going to try to give myself those 3 minutes. Remember, if you want to download and print my spreads, head to Patreon. You can sign up using the code on the screen to get 25% off of that annual membership. It makes it's already really affordable, but it's also, most importantly, it supports this channel and makes these videos possible. Well, friends, that's it for the 2025 yearly bullet journal, mental health journal setup. Sitting here with my cup of tea as if it just took 1 cup of tea for me to do that whole thing. It took a few days, it took me a few afternoons, but I really enjoyed it, and I hope you'll enjoy these spreads just as much as I did. And I will see you in the new year. This is my last video for 2024. I'm taking 2 weeks off at Christmas, so I hope you have a wonderful holiday. I wish you a happy new year, and I wish you some creative time. Make something with your hands, do a little doodle, and I will see you soon.